Hey guys, Peter Shankman. Welcome to another episode of 20 Minutes in Lockdown. I'm thrilled that you're here. I hope you guys are doing okay. I hope you're staying safe. Hope you're not in any part of the country that is, again, locked down. We are trying to avoid that, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be going as well as we'd like, probably because half the country is still not wearing masks, but that's neither here nor there. I want to introduce you to Lee Fletcher. If we have to, stay at home, and we might as well do it in style and in comfort, Lee does that. Lee is obsessed by how things are made. Right? As a kid, he basically took everything apart: his house, books, as he said here. Lego was his earliest source of interest in designing things.
Everything apart: his house.
And, I'm hearing a little feedback, so you might want to mute out until we're ready to go, Lee.
Of interest in designing things.
Not a problem. Okay, good. Yeah. Looks like you had it. Looks like you were trying to watch yourself. There we go. Much better. Okay, cool. I'll tell you to unmute when we talk. It sounds like it's on as well in the background somewhere. So if you want to kill your YouTube feed, that would prevent it from showing up as well. But anyway, Lee designs things, and he loves doing it. He is, let me see if I got this right. He is the co-founder of Community for Opportunity. And he's going to talk about that. He's going to talk about business furniture, business equipment, seating, all these things that can help change your business. So, Lee, well, assuming you've killed that YouTube feed, welcome aboard. It's good to have you, man. There we go.
There we go. We're good. Thank you very much, Peter. Good to see you. And yeah, thanks for the invitation.
How'd you get into the science of you just said, hey, I want to take this apart and see how it works? That was your sort of rebelliousness as a kid?
I think it was, I don't know. It was some sort of innate curiosity. It drove my parents nuts. I certainly, my dad is a notorious tinkerer. When I was a kid growing up in England, he used to buy mini bikes, and he'd buy all these wrecked things, and the garage was always full of them. And he would get the bits and pieces of things that worked, make one that worked, and he'd sell it. So I kind of grew up in this house of tinkering and pulling things apart, and I always had this fascination of how things work. And it wasn't until later on, to be honest, that my mum reminded me of the fact that, you used to pull books apart to see how they worked. And, so it's always been a fascination of how does this built stuff work and how does it come to be,
Totally get that. It's I once heard a quote that the artist is the creative child who survived.
Yeah,
right? I've always loved that. That's always sat well with me as someone who's massively ADHD and has always done things a little differently. I always appreciate that. So tell us what you do, because what is Community for Opportunity, and what do you do, and how do you help?
Okay, well, I'm an industrial designer, but I've been an industrial designer for a very long time. So we have a studio here in Toronto called Fig 40. And so we design a lot of office furniture, as you mentioned in your intro. But one of the things that is always, it's always central to the work that we do is environmental concerns. It's kind of what's the impact beyond just the object and the user, right? Because there's people that make things, and there's people that dispose of things, and then there's the use of the thing in the middle, right? And most of the design activity is focused on the use of the thing in the middle, which of course is paramount to anything if it's going to be successful. But there are these other things that get influenced by the thing in the middle. I have a friend in Toronto here that started a men's shelter many years ago, and they have 120 beds. And they've been full every night since the day they opened. And they had, as you might imagine, a pretty large laundry bill. At the end of every day, they've got 120 beds. And they're part of the Salvation Army. And Salvation Army has 5 shelters in Toronto. And they all need laundry. So one of the things that they did was they started a social enterprise, which was new to me. I didn't really know what a social enterprise was all about. But basically, they started a commercial laundry. And it was staffed by the guys that were in the shelter. So they would employ the guys in the shelter. So, and to do all the laundry, they'd collect the laundry from all the shelters and they'd do it. And it was this model that it saved them a ton of money. Now they've got other clients. So it actually is a business that's generating money, and it employs guys in the shelter and helping them get back on their feet. And it's like, wow, it's ticking every box, right?
Yeah.
And we got talking, we were laughing a little bit about the fact that we design chairs, and the running joke is, of course, do we really need another chair? You know, the world's full of chairs, right? So I got asking him about the chairs they had in their drop-in, and they're really just not very good. And when he looked at it, he found that they spend about $3,000 a year replacing chairs that break. They're not great in use, they don't last very long, and they cost them money. And this is maybe a long story, but the reality of contract office furniture manufacturers is that a lot of them don't make the components, they assemble components.
Right.
And we know who the component manufacturers are. And I thought, well, you know, maybe there's a connection between the way that contract furniture is set up, in that they just do assembly, and the social enterprise. So we could design a better chair for shelters. We could have the guys in shelters assemble the chairs for shelters, and we could draw on our supplier chain that we know of to create the components. And so it came together to create this venture. We have there's a branding company nearby that we do a lot of work with that helped us really craft and position the Community for Opportunity. And it was kind of born from that. So
I love the concept, the premise that you can help people and still make money. You know, when I sold the company, everyone said, "Oh, are you going to open a nonprofit?" And I said, "No. Why would I do that? I'd rather continue to make money and be able to give that money to people who know what the hell they're doing."
Right.
In the nonprofit world. Do you foresee a future where this becomes much more mainstream and much less fringe? You know, it always seems like there are nonprofits and there are for-profits, and never the twain shall meet.
Right.
Right. And you're saying, well, why don't we create something that not only puts people to work, but generates revenue?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
So two questions. Number one, what do you think has stopped that? What do you think has prevented that from happening and still prevents that from happening in a lot of ways? Is it just old school thinking? And number two, do you see a future where this is much more common?
Yeah, those are two great questions. I think the first question, I know in the industry that we're working in, contract office furniture, there are a lot of tight deadlines for delivery of things. And, you know, this Community for Opportunity is a relatively new thing. And to be honest, it's not like a full-time thing at the moment. We're not selling tons of chairs. We're trying to get the thing off the ground. But I imagine that the delivery of an order of 200 or 300 or 400 chairs may not necessarily be as tight or as fast as you're going to get it from Steelcase or someone like that.
Right.
So there has to be an allowance on the receiving buying end for perhaps a little more accommodation on timelines, and whether that's acceptable, whether that's communicated. I know in our business there are many levels that a sale goes through, right? From me to the manufacturer, to the interior designer and the dealer and the sales reps, and eventually to the company that buys it, and then the person that sits in the chair, right? There are all these levels.
Right.
And how does that accommodation of timeline get absorbed with all those key players involved? I think that plays a role.
I would imagine that there's also a pricing issue. You know, you have a world that, especially over the past 7 or 8 months, has just gotten, it already was, but even more so, ridiculously comfortable with, I need something tomorrow. I'm going to click on Amazon and it will be here tomorrow. And the extra $3 I'm paying for it, you know, it doesn't seem like extra $3 because it's here tomorrow. Right. And so I think I would imagine one of the things that you're going to have to sort of adjust with and gain the understanding of is, hey, this is not going to be there tomorrow, and it will cost a little extra, but here's the good you're doing. So it almost becomes like a CSR aspect. So it's a corporate social responsibility aspect that you're pitching the businesses as well. Yeah.
There is there's a bit of a rub with that I'm kind of learning in time. You know, the folks that work in the shelter I'm very keen not to appropriate the plight of people who are suffering in order to create this idea that people may want to buy a piece of. You know, it needs to be meaningful and not, I'm not quite sure what the word is, but I know we need to be careful about that. So how much of the value proposition in this chair is the fact that folks that are at risk of homelessness have made it, you know? And I don't quite know exactly where that all plays out. And it's a great chair regardless of who made it, right? That's got to be first and foremost. And it's got to be at the right price, and it's got to do the right thing and be reliable. So yeah, how that mix all plays out, I think we're still trying to nut through some of that.
I would guess that it's one of those things that over time, we've learned and again sort of adapted to do things, and I'm guessing over time we will as well with this.
Yeah.
Explain. How do I want to phrase this? You have an object, right? And I'm always curious about this because I come from a neurodiverse brain. I'm massively ADHD, and I've been told all my life I don't see things like normal people, right? It got me in trouble as a kid. What would happen if I shaved our family cat? Well, it turns out nothing good comes from that. But growing up, what happens if I reverse engineer this and create something better has allowed me to start and sell 3 companies. So what do you say to people who might have that same brain? Because it sounds like you have the exact same brain, but are, for lack of a better word, scared to take that shot at using it because we still very much live in a world that's based on sit down, do the thing that everyone else does and move on.
Right.
I mean, you've obviously proven successful with that. How do you? How would you offer that advice? What advice would you offer to people in that genre?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I had the good fortune that I refer back to my parents again. My dad's an entrepreneur and ran a business. It was very successful for many years. So I always saw. I never saw my dad working for anybody else. So I think I have the good fortune to have seen how you can model following your dreams and earning a living at it, right? And I don't know that everyone necessarily has the opportunity to see that. I would suggest get close to people who are doing it. Look for ways and opportunities for things that need doing that others aren't doing. I mean, it's the obvious look for an opportunity in the market, right? I used to work for a terrific designer many years ago, and he always used to look for what sort of things irritate you. And if something in your life irritates you, there's likely a design opportunity there, right? There are also, this is some of the things that I've learned over time is depending on who, there are many ways to get things done, right? You can do it all yourself, at which point you need a ton of knowledge and resources and extra, but there's also a whole ton of people that love to do little pieces of what needs to get done to get a whole thing done. So to draw on a network of people who know more about this specific thing than you do, it can be immensely valuable. And people want to help if you ask them for help.
That's a good point.
Right. So if you can build a network and link people like that, I think that is a way to perhaps get the ball rolling.
Let's look 20 years in the future. What are we seeing? Where are the jobs in terms of design and creative and things of that nature? Because there's certainly not, AutoCAD is 18 years old?
I think it's long. It's old. I took it in college. I left college a long time ago.
So where were we? I mean, I remember working in college, and I was my RA, my sophomore year. My RA was an intern at a company called it was called Diva, and they did video production. Okay. And she asked me to come along because I knew how to use Print Shop or something like that. Remember that for the Macintosh, for the Apple. And I came along, and they were doing some cool stuff, back in the early 90s. Well, they wound up becoming Avid. They flipped their name around and became Avid, and everyone remembers Avid. They were acquired by, I think, Adobe or whatever years ago. So where are we in 20 years, right? What is the kids who are entering college now? They're going to be in jobs that don't exist yet. What are they?
Yeah, just because
I'm sure you have the answer. Yeah. Tell us.
Of course. I'm glad you called, Peter.
From a creative standpoint, where do you see things going? Let's look at it that way.
Well, I think I guess there's a couple of things. One is a real pet peeve of mine is the fact that the term product design has been co-opted by people who make software and apps. And products for me are, this this is a product, this is a product, right? It's a physical thing. And until we become virtual beings, we're always going to need physical things. So we're always going to need a chair to sit on. We're always going to need a table to work at. So if we're going to need glasses, we're going to need these things, right? Physical things in our lives. And so there will always be a need for someone to do the kind of things that I get to do every day in some capacity. Now, I suspect there may be fewer of them, but maybe not, because maybe as manufacturing gets decentralized, there's more iterations and variations of these things, because that's happening with the advent of production level 3D printing and things like that.
Right.
So, that's one aspect of it. I think the other aspect, are you familiar with Bruce Mao?
Yes.
Do you know Bruce Mao? Right. He's a graphic designer from Toronto here, but has gone on to do some pretty tremendous things. And his recent book, MC24, about his massive change, talks about, he's a real advocate for any of the problems we have in society are design problems. And can be solved from a design perspective if we look at the elements that they're comprised of, and iteration and a process that we use for designing things on a daily basis. So, and I know that industrial design, which is what I do, started off many, many years ago as it's a discipline doing a specific thing. But right now, if you want to design running shoes, if you want to design apps for your computer, if you want to do all these other diverse things, you often start in industrial design and then diversify from there. So I think getting into policy making and all those other aspects of things that will address the problems that we've got, I think they're design problems. And so for younger people, I would encourage them, I often said this, take design, but also take anthropology and take philosophy and take these broader social sciences to give you a broader perspective on how people work and what they're doing, so that you can apply that design methodology to some of these bigger problems, if that's your thing. For me, I make stuff and I'm kind of mired in that, and my career is on a path and that's what I'm doing. But I teach at Sheridan College here, and I know that the students there, they go on and do different things. And so that would be my encouragement, is to have a broad perspective, but an open mind and an optimistic mind, right? Be optimistic, because the future is bright and there's a lot of great things happening in the world. We just don't often see them. So.
Amen. It's probably the nicest news I've heard all day. The future is bright, hopefully. Doesn't seem to be a lot of brightness lately, but hopefully we can get back.
But it's there, I think.
A friend of mine, Lisa Marks, just won, and I'm totally spacing on the company. It's a car company, and they have this design event every year in Asia, and she won it. She was a teacher at Parsons.
Yeah. And
then just accepted a faculty position down south. But it's amazing how, no one plans on doing this. And when it does blow up, and you realize the passion right. and the ability and what you can create, mm-hmm. it's limitless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Lee, how can people find you?
I'm at fig40.com is my website, and you can connect me through there. All my contact details are there. There's communityforopportunity.org is good. And those are, awesome. Get in touch.
Awesome. Lee, thank you so much for taking the time on 20 Minutes Lockdown today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for your interest, Peter.
My pleasure. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. Hope you like the new format. We're doing a few less episodes, but more in-depth episodes. So hope you're enjoying that. And we'll see you very soon. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Right. Thanks.